I had this kind of urge to be a big corporate girl. I got a job in email marketing with a large UK retailer. Going again from a small business where you've got someone as supportive as the boss I had, to a business where you're on your own pretty much. I had a really great sort of direct manager to me. She was brilliant, but other than that, the culture there was just something I've never experienced. And if I'm honest, it was quite brutal. There was a lot of bullying going on, and the stress and the anxiety just started to build at that point.
In this week's episode of Digital Circus Life, we have the absolute fortune of speaking to Laura Bean, who is a content and copywriter based in the South Coast and the founder of Creative Little World. In this episode, she speaks about how she went from working for a smaller organisation to a larger corporation and how that felt and how she transitioned from that back into working for herself as a freelancer. For Laura, it felt like actually being a small cog in a larger corporation was really, really tricky. And I would love to know if any of you have felt that way. If you have, leave us a little comment below. And whilst you're there, if you haven't yet subscribed to our channel, please do. It means the absolute world to us when you do so. We've made sure that we've put Laura's details below, and go and find out how much of an awesome human she really, really is. We absolutely adore her. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Sit back and relax, and we'll see you on the other side. Laura, thank you very much for joining us today, and we hope you're really, really well. So, as we start every episode, we'd love to know, what is it that you're trying to achieve right now in your business?
Well, hi guys, thank you for having me. So at the moment, I am taking a refocus of my business. So content and copywriting side of things is focusing more on working with leisure and tourism industry. So at the moment, I am sort of refocusing to niche with that area to hope work with some sort of bigger brands. I'm really into my outdoor swimming and just being outdoors generally. So it just feels really right to work with people in that industry. So yeah, at the moment it's just taking a new turn and finding that focus, building a bigger customer audience based on that. So that's what I'm doing at the moment.
I love it. Now, I tell you what, we have had a look on your LinkedIn because that's what we do. Some say it's stalking, call it stalking, some call it due diligence, call it what you will. But we found that. So this is what we find interesting about LinkedIn. When you get past the now and you get to the bottom of someone's profile, there's some fascinating nuggets. And the bit that stuck out from yours was your bachelor's degree from Solent Uni in water sports studies and management, right? So then you go, how do you go from a degree in water sports and management to being a copywriter and content writer? But then, you tell us that. How do you go from that?
Well, yeah, it's been an interesting journey, and it's funny coming back full circle to that industry. I haven't really left it along the way, but yeah, I did my degree in water sports studies and management, which obviously sounds a little bit unusual. The reason for it was because, I wanted to go to university and I wanted to do higher education, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And that's always been something, I've always been jealous of people that used to say, oh, I really want to be a journalist or something. I never really had a clue, but I was always very into water sports. My family, my background has always been sailing and on the water, scuba diving especially, and I saw that course and I thought, well, that's got my name on it, hasn't it? Like, I can get a degree in sort of business management but play on the water at the same time. So brilliant. It's kind of what drew me in, and I had 3 great years of uni fun and, like I say, doing water sports and just about managing to get the degree at the same time. But
I love it. A couple of things on that, right? I'm 44. I still don't know what I want to do when I'm older, right? And so if anyone who is young is listening to this, you're not going to know, right? And well, if you do know, amazing, 10 out of 10, round of applause. But for the rest of us, it's like still trying to work out what I want when I'm older.
That's part of why I never get myself a tattoo. Not the fact I don't want a tattoo anymore, but I change my mind so frequently that actually once I've got a tattoo, I appreciate in modern medicine and modern science you can remove tattoos these days, but no, I can't choose just one thing to be on my body forever. I just can't do it.
No, all mine are water related for that reason. That's the only thing that seems to stick through my life.
So Laura, I'm really curious. So after graduating from Solent, did you intend to go into a water-based career?
So I didn't really know, but I think over uni I learned that I got quite into events. And I thought, oh, event organising, that side of things. And I went travelling after uni, like a lot of people do, to kind of just avoid working for as long as possible.
Yep.
So I did that side of things. And then when I got back, I got a job working with a company that does the Seawork exhibition. So it was a maritime exhibition, and helping as their event organizer, which, sort of ticked all the boxes. It was still maritime, water related. And then I was sort of getting into the events side of things. And as I progressed, sort of doing events work, it started to change that kind of, well, actually, although I enjoyed being at the events and running the events, I was always more comfortable when I was doing the planning stage of it. And a lot of the elements of what I was doing was marketing related. So gradually I got more into the marketing side of things and started to find that I was quite interested in marketing. So that's when that kind of took off and started showing an interest in that. I moved on from there to another job with an event sailing company. And I was there not for a long time, but I was with them, and it was kind of my first taste of a small business. And yeah, there were elements of it that were slightly tricky, just sort of suddenly being in a job where you didn't have people to help you as such. You were in that role and that was your responsibility. But again, it was water related. It was in that industry, but I started to realize event side of things wasn't really for me. It was more the marketing that I really liked. So from there, I started working with a local activities company in Bewley. So I guess the theme of water sports and that stuck with me without consciously choosing it. It was just obviously going for jobs that were in that kind of area of expertise. And I was with them for sort of 3 years, and I really progressed them with my marketing. Like, they were great at kind of, once the director knew what fired you up, he was very good at being like, right, well, let's get you on some courses, let's help you develop that, and just have that mindset that, if I grew marketing, then I would help his business. So he was very good at helping that.
Sounds like a good boss, if you ask me.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. And we still work together today, so
oh, cool, very cool.
Things. Yeah, and then a few years on from that, I'd been with my partner for a couple of years at that point, and he has 2 kids that live full time at home with him. So I kind of became a stepmom at 24 to a 10 and 14-year-old. Wow. Full time, doing all the helping with the school runs and when they started going to college and all that side of it. So sort of chucked into family life from single girl.
So that's a big leap.
That is a big leap.
Yeah, and it was. I always credit the kids. I mean, I call them kids. They're now 26 and nearly 30. So
wow.
They're not so kids anymore. But I always credit them. They've always been great, and they've always been accepting of me, and we've always had a really good relationship. So that helped. But as any parent knows, you're juggling work and kids and stress of that, and trying to keep a home at the same time. Obviously, my now husband, he was full-time working as well. So when I decided to move on from the activities place, because I had this kind of urge to be big corporate girl, and I got a job in email marketing with a large UK retailer, and started working in their very big offices, and became this very tiny cog in this big wheel. And it kind of, going again from a small business where you've got someone as supportive as the boss I had, to a business where you're on your own pretty much. I had a really great sort of direct manager to me. She was brilliant, but other than that, the culture there was just something I've never experienced. And if I'm honest, it was quite brutal. There was a lot of bullying going on, and you know, it was taking quite a while to commute in and out from where I lived. And the stress and the anxiety just started to build at that point. It was kind of like, you know, I'm trying to run a home and look after help with my stepkids, and then going to a place of work where I just felt like everything you did was, any suggestion you put forward, there would be someone to argue it for the sake of arguing it. And I recall on one occasion getting an email from someone who decided that, I think they thought that they could make themselves look better by tearing down the work I was doing, and had copied in everybody that didn't even need to be involved, you know, one of those scenarios. And I remember at the time the feeling it gave me, especially because I could see the back of this person's head once the email, you know, it wasn't a case of coming and having a conversation. It was like, no, let's publicly try and
Wow.
you rather. And I just thought, I can't work in a culture like that.
No, absolutely not. And sorry, I happen to know who you're talking about because I've kind of worked it out. But isn't it bad? Like, you know, I get the difference between small and big because I've worked for some small companies and some massive companies as well. And I struggle with massive companies as well, and for slightly different reasons. But I think fundamentally the culture is there as well. It's much more difficult to kind of keep it in the right direction. But that kind of the ridiculousness and stupidity of the large companies overwhelms me, and how slow they are. It's like, how have you achieved this when you're this slow in moving anywhere? You know, the kind of excitement of the small company is much more, and you know, getting involved if you know, working much closer with the team to help grow the business.
That was another big element of it. You know, what I was doing, I mean, I was spending a week putting together one email that would go out, you know, in the back and forth of that, when you're in, you know, all the people that had to sign it off, and got to say over this one email would go out, where I was used to managing everything. You know, I'd done from, you know, planning all the marketing to delivering all the marketing. I was used to being the jack of all trades and doing everything. So it felt very strange and have so much resistance as well. So I had a 6-month contract to start with, and I just, when it came up for renewal, I just said thank you, but no
thank you.
Oh, bless.
And that's a brave thing to say, knowing ultimately the culture of that business has such an impact on you in your, not just your working life, but you take that home with you. And like I said, you've got stepkids at home, and that would be transferring to them. And it's just not worth that element of stress and distress, really, of your home life. And I used to do that when I used to work as a civil servant, and it was just after I'd had one of the children. I can't remember which one. I'm sure it was Lydia Rose. But it was the driving to the office, and that feeling of dread just like lifting up inside you, knowing that I'm going to go and not be where I want to be.
I was going to say, that's because you just didn't like being employed. You know, that's neither of us like being employed.
I think there's an element of that for me as well.
It's a big thing, but I think what you said there is that being that little teeny tiny cog in a massive machine there, and you know how much from your experience previously, how much you could impact and change that business, but that process from larger companies, they just don't have it.
Oh, it's so painful.
And it's painful,
so painful
when you've seen the other side of it and how refreshing the other side of it is. And we find that when we work within Yellow Tuxedo as well, if we're working with a small company, you know, processes are easier, payments are easier, conversation, making changes are easier. The minute we go with a larger based organisation, we're like, okay, here we go again. And it's really stressful for us as you know, the consultant there, let alone being actually working within that organisation as well. So okay, Laura.
I've got a question if you haven't got.
No, I was going to say, so
look,
you left that after 6 months. Did you go straight into self-employment there, or did you go anywhere else?
No, I went straight into self-employment. So yeah, it was that kind of, what I was learning from it was, one, I wanted to be based at home, or at least closer to home, and secondly, just that, you know, it wasn't working for me. I couldn't fit into a culture. I think from what I've talked to other people that have worked there, it's quite an extreme example of, I was not alone in how I felt, which is sad, I think, for the business. But I think it was a bad bad taster of corporate life. I'm sure there's plenty of others that are a lot nicer, but
I know a few who have worked there who have said similar. Actually, I know quite a lot who have worked there have said similar things. So no, I know. Anyway, look, all companies have their own problems. We can't victimise them, can we? Particularly,
no, absolutely. But yeah, it was basically from that point. I remember having a conversation with Andy, my other half, because like you say, you just bring it all home, don't you? And I was exhausted. That 6 months, I started falling asleep on the sofa really early and just being tired all the time. And I was just exhausted. I was drained. Like the mood was changing because, it was taking an hour to commute in because they refused to let you be flexible with the hours. So everyone had to come in for 8:30 and leave at 5. And you think, they had a multi-story car park. I remember queuing once to get 45 minutes to get out of the car park. And I was like, can't we just stagger? No. Okay. Right. And I've just thought, I can't live that rigidly. I've taken on responsibilities with the stepkids. I need to be a bit more flexible. And freelancing back then, especially when you're not, in that world, it was quite new in terms for what I was experiencing. I didn't know any other freelancers. It was kind of like, well, I don't really know what I'm doing. Is this something I can do? Just go out and make my own money? I didn't really understand it. But I knew, I was like, well, I can do marketing services for small businesses. So surely rather than hiring someone, they would like to just use someone on a part-time or, flexible basis. So that's kind of how it started. And the activities company hadn't actually replaced my role. So conversation there was basically like, well, I'm not coming back, but could I help you on a couple of days a week? So I started, I basically picked up my role on a flexible freelance basis. And my brother actually at the time started a photography business, which is how we got to meet ABC. How that connection came about. He needed some help. So I just, again, like kind of like, all right, I'm going to slot in there and help him with his business and the marketing for the studio and stuff. So quite quickly, a few opportunities came up, which went, right, we're okay, we're going to go into freelancing and give it a whirl. Yeah. Lucky I've got a supportive husband that was just like, well, yeah, do what makes you happy and go for it, and we'll figure out the rest as and when. And because I could pick up work very quickly, obviously financially it didn't, you obviously take a bit of a hit, but it wasn't too bad. And then I remember kind of about 6 months in, or maybe even a year in, that kind of point of going, right, well, I need to either pick up another client or need to think about going into full-time work. And I went for a job interview with a company for a full-time job, and then I went for an interview with a company that were offering, a flexible, and they quite like the idea of me being freelance and not employed with them. But so I was like, it kind of came down to, well, what's going to bite? Is it going to be the part-time one, which means I can carry on freelance, or the big employed company again? And the freelance opportunity came up. I didn't get the full-time role, although they came back to me a couple of weeks later and said they'd made a mistake in their choice. Would I come and work with them? But at that point,
nice.
I'm going freelance now. Like, that was the fates decided, or whatever you want to think.
What a fab confident, an unplanned confidence booster that you've kind of got a couple of people going, yes, please, we'll have you, and you go, fab, I get to choose.
And I think that was a really good choice for you as well. We have this conversation quite a lot, actually, and the idea of going back into full-time employment, we've had it between us. It's that security blanket of having that regular income coming in when you start out freelance, self-employed. It's tricky. It's you get used to, you get comfortable to that consistent amount of money coming through the door. What we learnt when we both went in together in business was actually you can survive on a lot less than you think you need. And it's about understanding that tipping point with your business will come at some point. But when you jump straight back into full-time employment, your time gets split again, and you're never going to put that time back into what you need to do to grow and have that tipping point on the other side of the scale as well. But it's terrifying, absolutely terrifying. Like I said, we've had it many times over the years going, should we just go back into full-time
it's probably one of after what should we have for dinner, probably the second most asked question in our house is, should we consider a job? Because you kind of get caught up in a bit of feast or famine and everything.
But then you remember why you're doing what you do in the first place. And as you've said it's the fact that having it on your terms, it's having the time with the family, being present, being able to just have that level of flexibility again to do what you need to do as situations change, that you don't always get when you go back into a big corporate, because you then become, again, another small cog in a very big machine. And it's difficult, that whole balancing of what do we want in life versus paying the bills. And
Right, I've got a question, Laura, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So we know you love the outdoors, you love the water sports, we know you open water swim every day. Are you looking at me in case, are you waiting for me to laugh? I think Emily was waiting for me to laugh because I said water sports, right? So I meant it genuinely. So we know you love
a degree in it, so I'm used to people laughing.
Yeah, okay. But you can't not laugh. I mean, I'm a child at heart. I tried my hardest not to laugh. Anyway, let me get to the point. So at some point, you've had to make a decision whether to pursue that to make money or whether to pursue the marketing to make money, but obviously that love of the outdoors still featuring in your life. Now, there's a great thing, isn't it? It's like, if you want to go climbing every day, become an accountant that will pay you to fly around the world to go climbing every day. Don't just go climbing every day. What's your take on, did you purposely split or did you, it might have been a chase in the money. I don't know. I just wondered, did you make a conscious decision?
Yeah, I did. So I worked, for a few years doing marketing, and the clients kind of, I guess I was quite fortunate. I had like long-serving clients that stuck with me. But what I kind of managed to do in that, the clients chopped and changed. Me and my brother went our separate ways and did different things and picked up new clients. And one of them was a marketing agency. So then I had their clients, my clients. And I basically got myself into a point where I was doing set days for set businesses. And that reality of I'm actually now working full time again, but I'm not getting paid annual leave, and it's quite difficult to take time off when you've got 3 bosses to try and manage that with. And I think it was the end of 2019. I was thinking, God, I'm stressed. Like, I'm really stressed, and I'm stretched really thin. I'm not doing my best work because I haven't got time to do it because I'm trying to do too many jobs, too many things for too many people. And the solution for a short time seemed to maybe, again, or should I go back into employment, because at least then I'm getting a set amount of money. I don't have to worry about the invoice. I don't have that side of it, but I'm still working full time. And obviously at this point the kids are grown up and left me feeling empty nest.
How does that happen? We're a few years away and I'm already dreading it.
I know. I was quite surprised being a stepmom as well. You think you'd be like, woohoo! But
oh, bless.
But yeah, at that point I was like, again, like back to that, I was sort of stressed and didn't know what to do. And the time at that point seemed it was a good idea to go employment, and the marketing agency offered me the opportunity to bring everything under one roof. So basically clients could come with me, they would employ me full time, my clients become their clients. And it did make sense at the time. And, I got a great relationship with the MD of that company, and we started, everyone came with me, they wanted to stay with me. And then obviously a few months later, COVID came in, and
woo,
the world changed. And really, I guess I was very fortunate at the time because I'd gone into employment just before that. So I was like, okay, well, I've still got a steady income, even though clients working in that that kind of leisure and tourism industry were having to make cuts and things. But we still worked blimmin' hard through that. Didn't get furloughed. didn't get the joy of tasting what furlough was like, to get paid not to work.
No, nor did we.
Yeah, and I thought, oh damn. But we worked really hard through that. But again, something still wasn't quite right. I was like, well, nothing's really changed in the fact that I'm still stretched really thin. I'm still stressed, and I know from the MD's perspective, she was doing her best to help, but I was just like, this isn't right for me. This isn't what fuels me. And I was thinking about it. And I think a lot of people did this during COVID, didn't they? Think about what actually brings me joy and makes me feel good. What do I like doing? And it's the writing side of it. So I've always loved writing. I've did it as obviously part of my roles, and it was the bit that people would always pick out as, oh wow, that's you're really good. And one of the clients we had was writing for Southampton Airport magazine, and at one point I was feature editor because I was then, oh, actually your stuff's quite good, so I'm like, cool, I'm actually quite good at this. So started writing with them, and did lots of guest guides and tourism magazines and stuff, and just was like, really love that. So it just became, what I realized the problem is that I still loved the freelance flexibility. I still craved that. And I just wanted to have that say in how things were for me. I've had people all over that career, all over my life, that have sort of said how I should work and what I should do, what time I need to be where. And I was just like, I just want to have my own choice. And it was a difficult decision because I still am still close with the MD, and obviously I know it was difficult for her, that me leaving the business, but I thought I've got to go and do this right. This basically my second freelance go, and do it properly, and do it in something that I'm really passionate about, which is why I went into the copywriting. And I was very strict, and I have been over the years. That's what I do, that's what I offer. Because people, when they know that you're capable of other things, they kind of, well, could you just do this as well?
Yeah.
So I've been very strict this time round, and focus it, because I can deliver better quality work, and that meant something as well. I was like, I want my work to be good. I'm quite, particular about things, and I want to deliver the best for my clients, and I can do that now because I've given myself the space to be able to focus on the thing I'm good at. Obviously, at the time being COVID, the tourism industry still wasn't very stable. And so I didn't focus on them. I worked a lot with coaches, actually, because the coaching industry kind of took off. And I had a marketing coach myself that I sort of worked with and doing things with, and he was referring a lot of his clients. So it just made sense to work with them. And, I've worked with some great people over that time. But yeah, the passion is still in water sports and leisure and tourism and outdoors.
You could come on. If you don't laugh, I think a little bit of you is dead inside. Do you know what I mean? Or your parents are present. That's about it. If you don't chuckle a little bit at water sports.
But you're day to day now. So Alan touched. You go open water swimming most days now, don't you?
I do. Yes, I was there for the summer solstice sunrise this morning at 4:52 a.m.
Brilliant.
But you get to do that, and that's what I think. Yeah, life is very short, and when you have such passions for things like that, and the idea of sitting on the M3 and driving up and commuting up to wherever you need to go again, that's just...
That was my realisation. I do say this quite regularly. I remember Emily and I, pre-kids, I was employed by Carphone Warehouse, that actually quite enjoyed my time there, no mega issues. But I remember leaving at 6 a.m. to go to meetings in Preston. And, I remember one day, I was a kind of an area kind of guy in the South Coast, and I'd go down to Plymouth for a sales meeting, early doors, go home. Next day I'd drive to Dover and then go home. And I remember thinking, this time and these meetings have zero bearing on my kind of life and my, and they didn't even truly affect my bonus, even though you're conjuring people up to make more money. I'm like, I reckon I could do this from home. And I remember saying to my boss once, I said, and this was pre-lockdown, right? The irony of this. And I said to him, look, I could have more impact by staying at home and just kind of arranging video chats and conference calls. And they went, and honestly, they went, no, they want to see you in. I says, what, you want me to drive around the South Coast visiting people when I could have more impact just from home? And they went, yes. I was like, fine.
The irony now.
The irony, now they want you to stay at home.
I had this conversation with someone yesterday, oddly enough, because where she works, they're talking about, we'll start getting people back in the office. And I was like, but why? Like, I know. And in her scenario, I think the case was the boss preferred working in the office. So that, and we said, it's funny, isn't it, how it's dictated by one person. And that's, and I said to her then, I said, this is why I had to break away from it, because one person can have a massive effect. Their decision to bring you into the office and make you travel over an hour to get to work each day, not give you flexibility to come in half an hour before or after rush hour, means that your mental health's affected, that you're exhausted, you're unhappy, you're sat in traffic. I mean, this morning I got back, the 6-minute drive from the beach, just as the traffic news was coming off, and I turned my car off and I thought, oh, isn't that nice? I don't even have to pay attention to what they're saying.
That's amazing.
Yeah. We forget, we are wrapping up slowly, aren't we? We forget what rush hours are like. Every now and then we get caught in one and we go, oh, well, I've forgotten what this was like.
It's the thing, when we go to IKEA at
yes, that's
we drive to IKEA on half. I mean, we get to the gates of the IKEA car park and go, it's half term.
Why are we
doing this? We don't have to do this. We're not employed. We can go during term time, daytime if we want to. Like,
we've turned around. We've got in the back of a traffic jam at IKEA, realised it's half term and gone, stuff it. Let's go home. Let's go to the beach or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Laura, so we're going to start to wrap up, but we have one final question which we ask all of our guests. If you could go back to your former self, say 10 years ago, and tell them one thing to say, what's the question, Alan?
What is the question? Right, if you can go back to your younger self, give them an arm around the shoulder and take them outside and have a chat, or give them a high five and go, brilliant. What one thing would you say to yourself?
I would probably say that to do what makes you happy and don't be influenced by other people so much. Because I think a lot, when I look back and just telling you all that story, I thought a lot of what went on in my life and how things were was because I was letting other people tell me what I should and should be doing. So I think I would be to just be a bit stronger and know your own mind and be confident in your own decisions. And
that's incredible.
Go for what you want.
That is it's incredible advice.
It is. I genuinely feel like the emotion coming out. I did when we recorded.
You do every week.
Well, no, I cry all the time anyway, but I can genuinely feel it. It's because I'm so tired. So
I think that's great, and your story of how you've got to today in 2023, it does shape where you've got to, and I think the fact that you've taken all of that, you've managed to create a business on your terms, but also in an industry that you have clear passion for as well. That's really, and whether you thought about that 10 years ago, being in as a copywriter for leisure and tourism or not, but you can see all those little tiny touch points across the years have led you here. Yeah. It's almost like the foundation blocks were put in place. It was all planned.
I always say to people when they, when I like my experience of the corporate world, I was like, it still wasn't something I regret, because I needed that stepping stone to go to. That's what got me freelance, because I went from there to there and went, oh no, this isn't for me. And that's what got, and I quite often say that when people are doing a job they don't like, I was like, it's your stepping stone. It will lead on to something else. But it is.
And it's all part of the adventure. Adventures aren't always smooth, but the end goal, the thing you're trying to achieve, is amazing. As simply as that. Thank you.
Right, Laura, thank you so much for speaking with us today. We've had such fun listening to your story.
I feel privileged hearing these stories. Genuinely, I feel privileged. Thank you so much.
And if you're listening, we will see you again next time on the Digital Circus Live.
Thanks, Laura. Bye everyone.